She was struck by lightning one summer afternoon here in Southwest Florida. Today on Here at Home, we hear the story of God's amazing grace from the young mom who survived that lightning strike while at the same time losing her precious son. Welcome to the Here at Home podcast, a podcast about the people here at McGregor, their stories, their ministry, and their love for Jesus. My name is Mark Bricker, and if this is your first time to the show, welcome. And if you've been listening for a while and are enjoying the Here at Home podcast, I would encourage you to subscribe. That way you'll get each new episode we create delivered right to your podcast player. So join me today in welcoming our guest for today's podcast, Meghan Davidson. So glad to have you on the show, Meghan.
I'm glad to be here.
Now, for those that are listening, Matt and Meghan are very, very dear friends of mine and my wife Macy's. We love you guys so much, and so it's a real treat to have you on the show today. And in just a moment, we're going to talk about something that happened about 4 years ago now. But before we get to that point, I want them to get to know you just a little bit, and also for you just to take a deep breath and relax, because everybody that is listening, they already like you and love you, and so it's gonna go great. But tell us first of all, Meghan, where are you from originally? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in upstate New York in a little town called Gloversville.
Gloversville?
Mm-hmm.
With a G?
With a G, yep.
Gloversville. Because it was so cold you had to wear gloves all the time?
Exactly.
They made gloves there?
Lots of leather factories.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So that's awesome.
Yep.
So how long did you live in upstate New York?
Until I was about 18.
About 8. So really, pretty much all your childhood growing up years.
Yep.
Small family, big family?
Big family. I'm the youngest of 7 children.
The baby. Mm-hmm. Wow. So the youngest is like even magnified for you because with that many older siblings.
Yes.
How many brothers and sisters?
I have 5 brothers and 1 sister.
Wow, a bunch of boys.
Bunch of much older boys.
Yeah.
My mom had me at 42, so there's a big age gap between us.
Wow. So you moved down here to Southwest Florida around 18?
I was like 20. I went away to school for a little while.
Okay. Yep. And then ended up here.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your family here.
So I am married to Matt Davidson, and we have 3 children. Bria, who is 6, Otto is 4, he'll be 5 next month, and Ozzy is 2.
How long have y'all been married?
7 years.
7 years. Mm-hmm. Wow. Time flies, huh?
It does.
Yeah. Now, Matt is a football coach and also an entrepreneur.
Yes.
I like to call him that. He owns gyms. But
yes.
You both are very much into health and fitness, right?
Yep. That is definitely both of our passion.
Now, are you still helping out in any way with
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
I teach classes there. So.
Great. Mm-hmm. And I know you and Courtney Allen have been part of a ministry called
Surrender Fitness.
Surrender
Ministry.
Fitness, yeah, which is awesome. And we had a chance to sit down with Courtney on the podcast and talk. Well, we didn't talk about that. Well, we might have mentioned it, but I don't know if we talked about it or not. But that's a really neat ministry. I appreciate you guys doing that. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's get to kind of what we were gonna talk about, and we have to go back 4 years ago. And I know you have shared your testimony in several different settings in the past already. How many times have you shared it publicly?
3 times.
3 times,
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And this is a little bit different because this is just us having the conversation. But it was about 4 years ago that tragically you were struck by lightning. Mm-hmm. And you were 39 weeks pregnant?
Yes.
So
I was about a week away from my due date.
Yeah, so ready to deliver and hoping to deliver. And so tell us what you know about that day. Kind of set the stage for us and kind of explain what you were doing, and we'll kind of go from there, kind of try to piece those things together and what happened.
So my memory isn't that good. So everything that I remember of that day is what others have told me what happened.
Right.
So I was having contractions leading up until coming into LaBelle. Coming into Fort Myers. We were living in LaBelle at the time. So since I was having irregular contractions, we decided to come into town as a family just in case.
Be safe,
because
yeah.
the hospital's here and not in LaBelle.
Right. Yeah. So I think you had gone, or you were over at your mom's house.
Yes, I dropped my husband off at work. We owned a gym in Gateway, and then I went to my mom's house about 10 minutes away. And
Decided to go for a little walk.
yes, I thought I could speed up my contractions a little bit.
But that was not the case in this situation. And so and you don't remember anything else after that.
No.
Right. But what we do know is that the neighbor, I know you've shared, was coming out to roll the windows up in their car because it looked like it might start raining soon.
Yes.
And they heard the lightning.
Yes.
And they looked out and saw you just lying in the street, right?
Yeah, she thought initially I got startled and fell, but as she approached me, she could see that it,
More than that
yes,
had happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was it her husband that came out quickly?
Yeah, she went back inside and grabbed her husband, and he came up to me. And another neighbor, I think from across the street, had called out because they heard the crack of the lightning, and they ended up calling 911.
And they got there relatively fast, but still you're out of it, and here you and your precious little one that's almost ready to come out.
Yeah.
Owen is in there while you're unconscious, and it was not good for either of you at that point, right?
No. I was probably without oxygen for like 10 minutes.
Wow.
That means Owen was too.
Yeah, and maybe even longer probably
Yeah.
for Owen. So the emergency folks get there. They do the paddles, right, to get your heart going again.
Yes.
Several times, correct?
Twice.
Yeah, and ultimately they get you into the ambulance and get you to the hospital, to Lee Memorial, to the trauma center, correct? So I know you've talked to the trauma doctor, the trauma surgeon there. I had a chance to meet her as well, but and you had a chance to do this after you were out, to go back and have a conversation with her. Share a little bit about some of the things that she shared with you about kind of what she saw when you got brought in that day.
Yeah, I asked her, I was like, what was it like to see a mom 39 weeks pregnant come in? And she obviously said, we're trained to take care of you and then baby, but she's trained for trauma, so I would have been very scared, but she handled it as if.
This is her job.
Yes.
Her job. And so they kind of made sure that you were stable enough. And then what was next?
They performed the emergency C-section, which only took about 7 minutes. They had to resuscitate Owen, which took a little bit longer, but they were able to bring him back. And
then they took him to Golisano immediately, right?
And then they performed exploratory surgery on me to make sure all of my organs were okay from the lightning strike.
Yeah, and I don't I don't want to go over this too fast, but getting hit by lightning, the percentage of survival with a direct hit. I mean, this was not I was in the house and it came through something.
Right.
I mean, it was you. That was it. Blew your shoe off and left a lot. I saw the marks on your body. And where did it hit you? Came in?
Behind my right ear.
Right ear, yeah. And out your foot.
Yes, which was weird because it did not look as if it came out my right foot. But
yeah. And so to survive something like that is a miracle in and of itself. And I know you will give God all the praise and glory that you are able to sit across the table from me and we can have this conversation. But then to think, okay, she looks like she's going to live, but there's got to be some long-term effects and damage because having that much electricity going through your body.
Right.
So immediately they did put you in an induced coma, correct?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what you know about those first few days.
I don't know very much.
I might know more than you do.
Yeah, you might know more. My husband, there was a lot of praying. The doctors did not think that the outcome would be very good.
No.
It was not until the third day that they allowed me to start to wake up from the induced coma. But obviously, they were anticipating many complications, from kidney failure to having issues with my lungs as they collapsed, all the different things. They thought that I wouldn't be able to cognitively be all right to take care of our children or things like that.
Yeah, I mean, there was just tons of questions and concerns through all that. What was neat was, and I don't remember what day it was, but it was either maybe the second. I know it wasn't the first night, but the second night perhaps. I know there was a lot of people praying, but I know folks from our life group, and you guys at that time, you were in the life group that Macy and I lead. And just a number of people that came up and crowded in a little waiting room area. I've got a picture. I actually looked at it just the other day as we were preparing for this. And people, just that prayer time in that room was just amazing, as people were lifting you up and lifting Owen up at that time and just trusting God completely through that. And that was repeated over and over, I know, in so many different scenarios where people were praying for you. And did I ever show you that picture of them? I'll have to show you that. Yeah, that was neat.
We're definitely thankful for all the prayers.
Yeah. And being there with Matt a lot through some of this, and I know you've heard me say this before, but his faith was just, blew me away, because I know how much he loves you and cares for you, but at the same time, he was trusting God completely with the outcome.
Yeah.
And at first I thought, well, it's just a defense mechanism. He doesn't. No, wait. No, this is just how deep his faith is as he went through this, and trusting God. And in some ways, he's a very pragmatic person as well. You know, but his faith was, okay, it's in God's hands, and I'm gonna trust both my wife and my son, and whatever the outcome is, I will still praise him through all this. Yeah. And so it was a neat testimony for me to see his faith lived out like that, in that way.
It's neat when you pray about your spouse, and when God brings you the person that you know you're supposed to marry, and when you face these kind of trials, how you walk through them together, it makes so much more sense, because you can be there for one another and strengthen each other with your walk with the Lord.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, that is neat. It was also neat to see your recovery so quickly. I think you kind of blew all the medical people's minds, and how, fast you recovered, and how really essentially there was nothing that was going to cause any kind of permanent, complications or problems for you. I know you struggled a little bit there with memory for a while. Yes. I think you used the phrase, you felt like your brain needed to reboot constantly. Like
in a conversation like this, I'd be like, what were we talking about?
What happened?
Yeah.
Which I guess you kind of expect that with all that energy going through you. So how many days in the hospital? 7, right?
7 days. I was released on the 7th day.
Yeah, and I remember how fast everything started speeding up. How oh wait, she's walking. Oh wait, she's going home. What?
My dad thought the same thing.
Yeah,
He was like, hold on, you need to keep her a little bit longer.
You don't realize she gets home and she'll start doing stuff that she's not supposed to do. So you get out after 7 days. Now, running parallel with this, remember, to our listeners, Owen is down at Golisano. And again, you're not even really aware. I mean, I remember you asking, what happened to Owen? Where's Owen? And we'd say, well, he's down at Golisano. He's at the hospital. But that was, I guess, kind of the goal that you wanted to do, is to get out of the hospital so you could go and see your son.
Yes.
And so I think is that the first place you went?
Yes, I left the hospital.
And went down to Golisano.
A friend of ours from the church brought me clothes to the hospital, and I was able to go, as soon as I was released, go over and see him. Go
straight down there to see Owen. Obviously, as you said earlier, he was without oxygen for a long time. And I think early on, they knew that if Owen was to survive, there would be a lot of long-term problems and issues. So tell us a little bit about how you and Matt, the process y'all went through over the next few days with Owen.
So we were I was just enjoying being with him for a few days, just being able to see him as a mom. I didn't expect walking in. I thought that I would be walking like how we had 2 other children prior, like I'd be able to feed him, and it'd be more of a different situation. But when I got there, he was tied up to a lot of machines. There was lots of wires. He wasn't moving around. Even his eyes, like he wouldn't fixate on me or anything really. He would open them from time to time. But I think getting there that first day, going home from the hospital, I was like, okay, now I understand what's going on here. Because initially it was just, I need to get to my baby so we can be together and we'll be fine. But it was a lot different once I got there.
Yeah. And I know for Matt, processing the just overwhelming joy that his wife is okay, but at the same time realizing the seriousness of his son, and that being torn between those two emotions was another difficult thing to process.
Even his tornness between time. Should I be with Owen? Should I be with Meghan?
Back and forth.
Bad either way.
Yeah. So there came a point where y'all had to make a decision. Kind of walk us through that.
So we met with Owen's team of doctors before any decisions were made, just to talk about his case and all those things that come with. We thought, leaving the meeting, we thought that we were preparing for a child with disabilities. They were pretty confident about his oxygen levels. When he would come off the breathing machine, they thought that he was stable enough. It didn't ever seem like, okay, you're going to take him off the machines and his oxygen's going to drop immediately. So that's what we were going in thinking that was going to happen.
That's not what happened.
No.
But I know that through a lot of prayers and trusting God, that you were going to say, okay, we will trust him.
We prayed over Owen. I think I remember you being there before we took him off those machines. And when you pray those prayers, it almost felt like I was floating. You release complete control, and you're praying over your child, just asking God to just save him and to heal him. But it was in his hands at that point. You don't have any control over the outcome.
Yeah. And while that can be a scary thing, it can also be a growing experience of, wait a minute, I never was in control anyway.
Right.
I'm just being reminded of that in a very big way. So they took him off, and I know you guys got to hold him really for the first time without all the wires and tubes and everything that hooked into him. But I'll let you finish the story here.
So pretty much immediately, he struggled to breathe. You could hear just the way that he was taking in the oxygen and letting go of it, that he wasn't going to make it. So they let us be with him for a few minutes, but it was pretty unbearable to watch your child breathe like that and know that he was slowly declining.
Yeah. And I don't know how much longer it was, but
I think it was about 20 minutes.
Yeah. You said your final goodbyes to Owen. I have a picture that they took there in the hospital with Owen with the wooden cross that Matt had carried with him that whole 2 weeks. That is just a precious photo, reminder of really the grace of God on you guys through carrying you through that, and how difficult that time was. So now that all happened in the span of 12 days, right? 12, 13 days.
Yep.
And then shortly after that, you had the memorial service for Owen as well. Looking back now, and that felt like a 2-month period. I'm sure, and especially for Matt. I mean, it just those were he probably didn't sleep hardly at all through that whole time. But looking back now, and I know you've done this yourself in kind of evaluating, but what were some things that, as you came out of that time period, that you said, wait a minute, these are some things God was showing us. These are things that God was teaching me through that. And I know in sharing your testimony for the first time, what was it, like 9 months after all this happened?
Yeah. You
had an opportunity to kind of express some of those things. What were some of those things that you were learning through the storm and the trials?
like I was kind of explaining earlier, just having a full understanding that we're not in control, that God is fully in control, and we can make all the plans that we have, and whether they be good or maybe not good, but having a child, it to me seems innocent and good, but if it's not according to God's plan, how he heals us, I guess, through those things.
Yeah. So was that something that kind of hit early on, or was that something that you had to work through?
I had to work through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How raw was that initially? Was there a lot of pain? And
Oh yeah. I prayed to God, where are you?
Yeah.
I didn't understand why we were going through the things that we were going through, and I think all those things that in His Word, when it says that all of our sins are equal, I almost was holding myself on a pedestal. Like I knew that I would raise this child in Him, but He taught me that just because I look at my sin one way, it's the same as another person's, and that this is a fallen world, and bad things happen because it's a fallen world.
Yeah, the potential for being angry, mad, and the list goes on, and I'm sure you struggle with all those emotions.
Absolutely.
Is there anything now that every once in a while you question, or you?
I think that there is things. I would be lying if I said I didn't question things. I guess I understand God's sovereignty, and I understand that there's nothing that happens here without passing through His hands first. And I guess I just sometimes struggle with understanding, did He deliberately do that, or did He just let it happen because He knew that He could be glorified through this situation?
Right. And I think there are a lot of those questions that will be unanswered for us this side of
Yes.
eternity. But I think your focus, knowing that, yes, God is sovereign, God is in control, and there is a comfort in that, even though there's a lack of understanding with our finite
Yes.
minds that might even lead to questions, but yet still, if we trust Him with that understanding that He is in control and sovereign, that can be a great comfort for all of us. And you guys demonstrated that. And yes, the questions come, yes, the what ifs, but yet at the same time, I saw that steadfastness to say, yes, we're going to trust God. We might have some weak moments along the way, but we're going to trust God. What else has He been teaching you? Maybe even something more recently that came out of losing Owen.
I guess just full reliance on Him, a deeper appreciation for prayer. When you were saying earlier, just how everybody gathered in that room and was praying for me and my family, and my prayer life wasn't anything how it is now prior to that happening.
Wow.
And even just appreciating His Word on the daily, just waking up and poring over it the way that I should have been, but I wasn't. He's grown me in my walk in those ways.
So you can look back over these 4 years and say, yeah, I have grown a lot in my understanding of God and His Word, who He is, and His plan for my life. Yeah, that's awesome. And that's that opportunity to give glory to God, because you can say, yeah, this was a terrible tragedy in losing our precious son, Owen. But yet I can see good that has come out of it. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think whenever you put anything that you go through in this life and you compare it to what Jesus did for us on the cross, nothing compares to that, you know? And if you fully believe in that, then you can say, no, what I went through is nothing like He did for us.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody that maybe they haven't faced a real serious trial in their life? What would you say to them as a believer to hopefully prepare them for what may be coming? Because nobody knows when that next lightning strike is going to come, or whatever trial or tribulation we go through.
I guess to have more of a loose grip on the day, and on any day. And so we're able to kind of go around our plan and be more accepting to his plan.
Yeah. We like to try to
Yes.
plan out our day, don't we, Megan?
Yes, we do.
I'm guilty of that. Man, you hit me right in the between the eyes on that one. Hold it with a loose grip. That's a good word. All right. On a little bit lighter note, not a lot lighter. Do people ever come up to you and go, "Are you that lady that got hit by lightning?" Do you ever have that happen?
A lot. When it first happened, you'd get a lot of weird looks at the grocery store, but not so much anymore.
It's faded a little bit, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think you'll have an opportunity anytime in the future, or are you open to sharing your testimony?
Oh, yeah.
In the future?
Whenever you walk through something like that and you want to glorify God, I pray for those opportunities.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to somebody that's gone through a trial that you've been able to come along and encourage?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's neat, because I'm thinking pretty much whatever anybody's going through, not that you're trying to top them, but
Right.
I was struck by lightning and lived. You know, that's a pretty that's a pretty big one there, and so folks can relate, especially your whole story and losing your son and that process as well. So yeah, I would think that you have the credentials, so to speak. Yeah, I've gone down that tough road. Let me tell you how God provided for us in the midst of the storm. So
Yeah.
I would encourage you to be ready to do that, because I think God can use you, Megan, in so many neat ways. Well, you know how much I care for you and Matt. You guys are awesome. You guys serve in the student ministry now. Been doing that for a little while.
Yeah.
And anything else we need to know about Megan and Matt?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
We got our coffee. Megan enjoys coffee, so we made a good cup of coffee for each of us, and enjoy that. Thanks again for joining us. And I want to wrap up this episode of Here at Home. And thank you, listeners, also for being a part of our Here at Home podcast community. And if you haven't subscribed yet to our podcast Here at Home, or any of our other McGregor podcasts, I would encourage you to head over to McGregorPodcast.com, and you can see the different podcasts we have, and you can subscribe right there. And also, I would encourage you, if you are enjoying these podcasts, to leave a rating and a review. Let other folks know the benefit that you're receiving from our podcast here. So again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks here at home.